Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sierra, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking all about gut health and how to heal your gut. As always, if you are new to my channel, then welcome. I'm so glad that you're here, and I would love it if you find value in this video. Please subscribe, join the journey. I share videos about health and wellness and including cooking videos because of course I am a nutritionist and so I love food and cooking. So if that's your jam, join along, subscribe. I love to have you here. So let's go ahead and get cozy, grab a cup of coffee or tea, and let's get into this. So a little bit about me and why I feel like I'm qualified to talk about this subject is because one, I do have my master's degree in clinical nutrition. I've taken and passed a board exam. I have over 1,000 hours of supervised practice working with patients. And the biggest thing of all is I struggled with chronic gut issues for probably 10 or 15 years. Most of my life, for as long as I can remember, starting when I was a teenager, all the way into my mid-20s, I struggled with severe gut issues. And it led to a lot of other issues such as irregular menstrual cycles where I had to be on birth control. I also had severe acne from the time that I was about 12, struggled with depression, anxiety, and just a lot of other issues that came because of my gut issues. But my actual gut issues were probably what bothered me the most because it was physical pain and physical discomfort of acid reflux, SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, H. pylori infections, stomach ulcers. I was constantly dealing with either diarrhea, bloating, or constipation, which kind of was all over the place. So I have been there and I know how much that these things can really impact your life and reduce your quality of living. You can heal your gut. It's totally possible. I've done it myself. I've helped so many other people heal their gut. So I 100% believe that it is possible. And I think everyone should have access to this information. Whether or not you can afford to work with a nutritionist, you can heal your gut. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And I hope you guys get a lot of value out of this. So before I go any further, I do want to say I'm also going to have a free digital download. I'm going to leave the link below to my website, thrivewithsierra.com. And if you subscribe to my email list, I'm going to be sending out this PDF guide of how to heal your gut, the steps, everything that I'm going to be talking about today in a PDF form so that you can have access to it, review it as much as you need. And I don't even care. Share it with your friends. Whoever needs gut health, share this with them. And let's get our guts healed so that we can have better health. So if you want that file, it's free. Go to my website, subscribe, and I will be sending that out to you. Okay, so enough of an intro, let's get into how to actually heal our gut. So I'm going to be talking about a very basic protocol that a lot of health practitioners use, and it's quite generic, but we're going to get into how to implement it and everything like that. It's called the 4R protocol. So 4 R's, it's remove, replace, reinoculate, and repair. So we're going to talk about these steps, what they mean, how to do them, why to do them, how long to do them, and so on and so forth. Before we get into that, I do have to share a little bit of a scientific kind of background so that we understand what we're talking about and why it matters. So our gastrointestinal system is starting in our mouth, going to our esophagus, into our stomach, our small intestine, our large intestine, colon, and our anus. So the whole digestive system starts from mouth to anus, and that's everything that's encompassed whenever you hear the words digestive system or digestive issues. And the second little scientific tidbit that we need to understand is our gut barrier, because you've probably heard this term a lot, leaky gut or impaired gut barrier. So what does that actually mean? So our gut is lined with something called villi, which are finger-like projections that increase the surface area of our intestines. So kind of think of it like these little fingers that are lining our intestinal system. And on these little fingers, there's, these folds, if you kind of look in through your fingers, and each segment on these, like all of this surface area, is a potential place for us to absorb nutrients. So increasing the surface area by adding those folds means that you have a greater chance of absorbing nutrients. On these villi, we have microvilli, which are even tinier fingers. And those are important as well. Again, increasing that surface area so that we can absorb nutrients. And our villi and microvilli, this builds up our intestinal barrier. This is really important because this is essentially what builds our immune system. About 80% of our immune health starts in our gut. So having a strong gut means having a strong immune system. And that kind of goes back to the health of our intestinal villi. So when you hear the term impaired gut barrier or leaky gut, essentially what that means is that the intestinal villi have become damaged and they're no longer creating a barrier for keeping things in our intestines and absorbing nutrients correctly. So having an impaired gut barrier or leaky gut, which is just a common phrase for impaired gut barrier, means that these villi are damaged and possibly opening up some gaps in that barrier. So as I mentioned, our villi, the purpose of them is to absorb nutrients. So when there's gaps in that, that means bigger substances, larger things that aren't fats, vitamins, minerals, bigger things that aren't supposed to be getting into our bloodstream do get into our bloodstream. So that's when we start to see a lot of food allergies develop, food sensitivities develop, and autoimmune issues develop. So having a healthy intestinal villi is really, really important to prevent those things from happening. So I hope that wasn't too much of information that you didn't want to know, but it's extremely important because that's what we're going to be referring to a lot is strong gut barrier, impaired gut barrier. So having an understanding of what those things even mean, I think will really help you implement a gut healing lifestyle overall. Okay, now that we know a little bit about the intestinal villi and our gut barrier function, let's talk about the 4 R's to heal your gut. So the 4R protocol, I like to view more as a lifestyle rather than a diet. Now, if you do struggle with gut issues, it's best to implement this strictly for at least 30 days, ideally 60 days, to give your gut time to heal. But understand that really past the 60 days, the goal is to be able to eat all foods without having gut issues or bloating or all of these other issues happen because of what you ate. So the goal is, a wide variety of foods, not restricted eating. But in the beginning, sometimes we do have to be a little bit more strict just to allow time for our gut to heal before we reintroduce foods. So let's talk about these R's. So they're not necessarily chronological, step 1, step 2, step 3, and 4. Rather, we kind of need to do them all together all at the same time. But we do need to start with the first one, which is remove. So if we're not removing inflammatory foods and foods that are causing issues for us, it's gonna be really hard to repair and heal and everything like that. So we do kind of have to implement this one first. So in the remove R, this is where we are removing inflammatory foods and foods that we know are causing issues. So what is an inflammatory food? First, it's the obvious thing, food allergies and food sensitivities. Typically, food allergies, you would know if you have these because whenever you eat the food that you're allergic to, you have an immediate response, an immediate reaction, whether it's tingly throat, throat swelling, difficulty breathing, hives. Allergic reaction typically happens immediately. Food sensitivities are a little bit more difficult to distinguish because they can take up to days to respond. Anywhere from hours to days after you eat the food that you're sensitive to, you could be experiencing some symptoms. So the best way to identify food sensitivities is either by taking a high quality food sensitivity test, not consumer market purchase food sensitivity test. Those are not accurate at all, but doing a high quality food sensitivity test or keeping a detailed food journal with a symptom tracker. So essentially tracking everything you eat from anywhere 2 to 4 weeks and tracking every single symptom that you have when you have it. And then you kind of have to look back and look at patterns and analyze when you ate what, when you had what symptom. It's more difficult to do it that way, but it's the free version. So removing food sensitivities and food allergies will reduce a lot of inflammation that's going on internally. And that's one of the first steps to get your gut calmed down enough to where it can heal. I like to use a metaphor of somebody like having a knife wound, right? In order to let that wound heal, you have to remove the knife. The knife that's causing the wound needs to be removed, and then we need to treat the wound. So when we're talking about removing inflammatory foods, that's what we're talking about. Remove the knife, because then we can focus on healing the wound that it's causing. So food allergies and food sensitivities are one group of inflammatory foods. The other group of inflammatory foods is sugar, processed foods, deeply fried foods. All of those, unfortunately, do cause inflammation to the gut. Now, I know there's a lot of opinions on sugar's not bad or sugar is the worst thing ever, and just hear me out. There's a lot of scientific evidence that shows sugar to be more inflaming, more linked with things like osteoporosis, obviously things like diabetes, heart disease. So we know to some degree that a high sugar diet does cause inflammation, and we see it damaging the gut. So I'm not perfect. I have healed my gut. Yesterday I had a piece of cake, and that's totally fine. That's going to happen in life. Thanksgiving is coming up. I expect you to enjoy your pumpkin pie or apple pie if you want to. But understand that when sugar is consumed, especially chronically, it's in a lot of our ingredients: ketchup, ranch, salad dressings, breads, sodas, teas, coffees. When sugar is consumed at that frequency, it is going to inflame your gut. So if you want a healed gut, you do have to remove sugar, at least for some time, strictly to, again, remove that knife from causing the damage to your gut. And then you can work on healing your gut and incorporating sugar back in sparingly, occasionally, birthdays, holidays, special occasions. Another group of inflammatory foods is processed food. So when I say processed foods, I'm really referring to ultra-processed foods that are produced in a manufacturing plant with non-natural ingredients. So I'm not talking about like a whole grain loaf of bread or, whole grain pasta that only has, brown rice flour. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about Cheez-Its, Doritos, Sour Patch Kids, soda, all of these things where if you flip the ingredient label over and read that, you're not going to be able to tell me what 90% of those things are. And that's just how it is. And these things aren't recognized in our body as food nutrients. And unfortunately, they do cause inflammation in our gut. And if we want a healed gut, we do have to remove these, ideally lifelong, replace it with something else, or really, really sparingly, not as a part of your daily intake. Overall, I've trained my body to not crave that. And in fact, I don't crave it. So I don't feel that I'm restricting myself in any way. I'm very much an intuitive eater. So when I crave something, I eat it. I don't crave those things. I've changed my cravings simply by changing how I eat so that it doesn't feel restrictive to not eat those things. The last few things we need to remove to heal the gut are going to be alcohol, coffee, gluten, and dairy. Now, I know these are the fun ones, but just remember that the goal is a healed gut long-term, so we can reintroduce these things in the future. But really, while we're trying to heal the gut, removing alcohol and coffee is going to be really important. Alcohol really damages our gut microbiome. Our microbiome is the host of bacteria that lives in our gut that creates our health, really. So alcohol can really be damaging to that. So in that first 30 to 60 days, you really do want to remove that as much as possible. Now with coffee, I would recommend something like, if you aren't able to fully give it up, wean off slowly, wean down to like 1 cup a day. And if you can, quit entirely. If not, try to replace it with something like cold brew, which is actually less acidic, or a low acidity coffee. So that would be my recommendation for coffee and alcohol. Now for gluten and dairy, these are also things most people tend to be sensitive to if they have an inflamed gut. Gluten is the protein found in wheat. So any wheat products like pasta, bread, cookies, cake, anything like that is going to have gluten. And then also rye and barley are a big source of gluten as well. So trying to remove these products in those first 1 to 2 months really is going to kind of create an environment where your gut can heal. And then dairy is another one of those. Most people actually are lactose intolerant, and as we age, we lose our lactase enzymes, which makes us lactose intolerant. Lactase is the enzyme that helps break down lactose, found in milk. So we do become a little bit more sensitive to dairy as we age because of that. But many people can tolerate them in the future once they heal their gut. But step one is healing the gut. So those do need to be removed in order to kind of get there. Okay, I feel like that was so much that we just got through, but now that we've talked about everything we need to remove, now let's talk about actually what do we need to eat. So this is the second R, which is replace. So after we've removed all of those inflammatory foods, then we want to replace it with foods that are going to feed our good gut bacteria and create a healthy microbiome to give us good health and no gut issues. So it's a very simple whole foods based diet. So basically, after we've removed everything, what's left is whole foods. So one of the best sources of protein is going to come from fatty fish. Fatty fish are very anti-inflammatory in nature because they are really high in a fat called omega-3 fatty acids. You've probably heard of these before, but these are known as anti-inflammatory fats. They have really similar action in the body to even taking something like ibuprofen, except ibuprofen is synthetic and has a lot of negative side effects, but they basically work on the same pathway. So they create more or help reduce inflammation by having a very anti-inflammatory action. Easy way to remember the fatty fish is by an acronym called SMASH. So that's salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. It's not an exhaustive list of fatty fish, but that's an easy way to remember some of the best ones. I always like to tell people fatty fish are like the superfood of protein because they also have vitamin D, calcium, vitamin A, zinc, selenium, lots of different nutrients and vitamins and minerals in fatty fish. So they're absolutely incredible, one of the best sources of animal protein you can eat. Apart from fatty fish, we're looking at a lot of plant-based foods. So vegetables, fruit, legumes, nuts and seeds, whole grains, meaning instead of white rice, something like brown rice, or instead of white bread, something like a whole grain bread. So we really want to get a lot of those whole foods in there. If you can fill up more than half of your plate with vegetable or plant-based foods, that is ideal. We have seen a lot of evidence that people who eat a diet higher in plants have overall better gut health. So that is our long-term goal. If you have something like SIBO that you're trying to navigate through, you do need some extra guidance on this because SIBO is a little bit more sensitive to fibrous foods. So that's going to be a little bit different if you're dealing with SIBO exactly. But apart from that, we do want to incorporate lots of plant foods, very whole food based diet. The third R is reinoculate. So we talked about the gut microbiome. The microbiome, again, is that host of bacteria that lives in our gut. So to reinoculate our good bacteria, we want to use a lot of probiotic foods. So you can use food or supplement for this, but I always am a food first kind of person. So probiotic foods are going to be things that have natural good bacteria in them. So this is typically our fermented foods like yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, miso, tempeh, any kind of home fermented vegetables, if you do that at home, these all have a lot of good natural bacteria that grow in them as the food is aging. So eating a lot of those probiotic rich foods really helps to kind of reinoculate our gut and get some good bacteria in there. Last but not least is repair. So now that we've talked about removing inflammatory, harmful foods and replacing it with good stuff, reinoculating it with good bacteria foods, now we want to really focus on what else do we need to do to repair that gut barrier, get our gut healed to the point where we can occasionally have, a piece of pie without it completely throwing off our health. So this is where we're really specifically looking at the use of nutrients and supplements to really promote repaired gut lining, good gut bacteria. One of my favorite things is digestive enzymes. So I really recommend these to anybody who has gut issues because when you have gut issues, digesting food can be difficult. Eating can be stressful and it can be hard, not only emotionally because you're worried about all of these symptoms that you're about to get, but physically. If your stomach and intestinal system are already struggling, sometimes breaking down the food that you're eating can be a big obstacle. If you're, if everything is out of balance and microbiome is all messed up and you don't have enough enzymes or stomach acid to break down your food, that causes a lot of stress on your intestinal system. Food doesn't get broken down properly, you're not absorbing nutrients properly, you get bloated, you get constipation, or you see food chunks come out in your stool, or you get diarrhea. Literally lots of things can happen. So step one is the digestive enzymes. I recommend taking these about 20 minutes before you eat. That gives the capsule time to dissolve, and those enzymes start going to work by the time you put that first bite of food in your mouth. So taking digestive enzymes provide those natural enzymes that help break down our food to ease some of that stress that your stomach and intestine would otherwise be doing. I will link some of my favorite supplements below that I have personally used, and great high quality therapeutic grade supplements. Now, after you take your digestive enzymes, when you start eating, really important to chew your food well. Digestion starts in the mouth. As I mentioned earlier, our digestive tract starts in the mouth, so digestion starts in the mouth. When we're chewing our food, salivary enzymes are coming out, and these help break down a lot of carbohydrates. So when you're chewing your food, chew really well, get that saliva wrapped up in your food. That's going to start the process of breaking down those nutrients before it even hits your stomach. So chew really, really well. That's going to make it also easier. And that's part of that, step with taking your digestive enzyme supplement. Chew your food really well. That's a great way to start digesting your food. A couple other nutrients that are really important to heal your gut are vitamin D and omega-3 fatty acids. Now, again, I'm a food first kind of person, so if we can get this from the diet, that is ideal, and that's where I go back again to talking about our fatty fish that I mentioned earlier. Fatty fish are like the superfood. It's going to have that omega-3 fatty acid in there, which is anti-inflammatory, good for your gut, and then it's also going to give you a lot of vitamin D as well. Now, in the wintertime, you might still need to supplement with vitamin D because most of us aren't in the sun enough to get that proper vitamin D synthesis, but check your levels first on that. You might not need to supplement at all, but definitely you do want to get it from your diet. Fatty fish is a great way to get that, or eggs also has a little bit of vitamin D as well. Another source of omega-3 fatty acids could also come from nuts and seeds. So chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, any kind of nuts and seeds that you enjoy. A lot of them have really good sources of omega-3 fatty acids in there. Not as bioavailable as animal omega-3s. We're not going to get into that right now, but still something healthy to include in your diet. They provide a lot of minerals, a lot of vitamins, good healthy fats and proteins. So that would be another source of omega-3s as well. Some specific supplements that I like to use to really, really focus on repairing the gut are things like zinc, L-glutamine, aloe vera juice, and licorice. Marshmallow root can also be a great one. Those in combination are absolutely incredible for repairing our mucosal lining and gut barrier. So the gut barrier that we talked about earlier, that's keeping everything where it needs to be, keeping our gut bacteria healthy, preventing things from passing over into our bloodstream that aren't supposed to be there. Zinc, L-glutamine, marshmallow, licorice, and aloe can be excellent tools to have in your supplement regimen. Now, zinc is a trace mineral, so we don't need a lot of it, but I would say 15 milligrams of zinc is a safe dose to take short term. Definitely check with your practitioner, your healthcare provider before starting zinc, but a lot of times people who do have impaired gut function tend to be really low in zinc. So that would be something I would recommend looking into. But again, it is a trace mineral, which means we don't need a lot of it, and you can also get too much zinc. So definitely be cautious with that one. Make sure you're working with a practitioner for that. But L-glutamine, this is something you can safely get in food sources. Bone broth is one of the most significant sources of L-glutamine you can have. You can make your own bone broth using chicken bones, beef bones, even fish bones. So what I like to do is anytime I buy an animal protein, I will save the bones from that, throw it in a pot of water with garlic and onions, maybe some potatoes, carrots, whatever vegetables I have on hand, and make my own homemade bone broth. It's absolutely delicious. Excellent source of L-glutamine in there. And you're also gonna get some really good protein, fatty acids, lots of good nutrients come from bone broth. Okay, the last few ones, marshmallow, aloe, and licorice, I usually prefer to take these through either supplement, powder, or pill, or tea. There is a really good tea that's from Traditional Medicinals called Throat Coat. And even though it says throat coat, it actually has a lot of those herbs in there. So it's got the marshmallow, aloe, licorice. I believe it also has ginger and some other really healing foods. And what a lot of these herbs do is they actually promote our mucosal secretions to create that mucosal barrier of our gut, which we need. So I think throat coat is a great tea to always have. It's really also good if you do have a sore throat. It does help. But definitely really, really good for the gut. It's not going to be as high dose as taking a supplement, but that's something you could, sip on throughout the day or in the evening. It's not caffeinated, and that's just going to overall promote a more healed gut lining. Aloe vera juice, you could also take liquid form. You do need to find food grade aloe vera juice, 100% pure, ideally organic, and that can be something very soothing to the gut. So if you deal with a lot of burning and discomfort actually in your stomach, taking aloe vera juice before a meal can be really soothing. Aloe vera juice can cause some diarrhea if you take it in higher doses, so I would recommend starting with about 1 ounce, which I believe is about a shot glass worth, and maybe work up to 8 ounces is the typical 1 to 8 ounces is the serving size. I would say start low. 1 to 2 ounces a day should be very supportive overall of your gut health, and it's very soothing, feels very good, doesn't taste great, but stick it in the fridge, chilled, just chug it. It's one of my faves. Okay, well that is pretty much the 4 R's that we talked about. Like I said, I'm going to have a PDF so that you can download this guide, kind of walk through, have that list of foods, what to eat, what to avoid, and I will have that in my website below, so go subscribe. I will be sending that out to you, and I hope you found this video really helpful. If you need more personalized support, I do work with clients. Now I am getting ready to go back to school, so as of January, I won't be working with clients, but in the meantime, I am still working with people every day, working on healing our guts. I've been there, I've gone through it. It's definitely possible, so if you need more personalized help, definitely reach out, but if not, grab that guide below, get started on your gut healing journey, and I believe good gut health is in your future. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found value from it. If you did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, join along. Happy to have you here, and I hope you guys have an excellent day.